why don't you take a seat and tell me what appears to be the problem. I've collected 4 questions for another Consult the Doctor, and I think that some are pretty short answers, and some are, I think, a little bit more philosophical. Funny enough, 2 are about ink. So without wasting any further time, let me dive in. How can I lubricate an ink? There are different ways to do it. If you have particularly dry ink, Gerbin, Lit de Thé, love that shade, too dry for me to use. There are different things you can do. Venice Pens sells a product called White Lightning. It's a chemical, I'm assuming, right? You put the tiniest bit of that into your ink. I probably would not do that in the bottle of ink. I would take a little sample vial, put some ink in, put a tiny bit of that stuff in it and use it, and it gets wetter. I have done a review of that product, and I've shown you what effect it has, like a before and after. Okay? That is one option. If that is a little difficult for you, if you say, well, it's hard for me to get, some people are in parts of the world where it's not easy to get that shipped to, for example, you can use dishwashing detergent. Dishwashing detergent works magically. Same procedure. Use extremely little. I mean, think of what a tiny amount would be, and then use less than that. So I've seen people do this where they put ink in a sample vial. They take a syringe with a needle, dip the needle, not suck up, but dip the needle into dishwashing detergent and put that in the sample vial. That's how little you're talking. And I have found that works pretty well. Sometimes you get more feathering on the paper with that, but that might mean that you've used too much. You're really talking minuscule amounts. I've also heard of people who put food grade glycerin into ink. I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the components of the White Lightning, but I haven't checked that. I've never done that. So here's my question to you. If you have, please comment. Let everyone know how that went, because this is how we learn from each other. I can't speak from experience, but if you can, please feel free to comment. Okay. The next question I thought was kind of a cute one as well. How much flex is too much flex? Well, I know this was probably asked in kind of a tongue-in-cheek manner, but I do actually have a sensible answer to it, at least sensible to me. For me, any nib that opens up fairly easily under no pressure, so you talk, for example, vintage wet noodle, super flexy nibs, is too much flex. I can't use that. I like to play around with a bit of flex once in a while, but it's really just playing, because my handwriting isn't suited for it. It's very difficult for me. I probably should get more practice, but it doesn't work for me. If I want to use a flex nib, then I would use a flex nib that only opens up under considerable pressure. That works for me. So for me, too much flex is anything that opens up too easily. Too soft, to me, is too much. Bet you didn't expect that. Anyway, okay. The next question I thought was an interesting one as well. I will summarize this a little bit, but it came down to, are there any ink colors that you have learned to get on with, even though you might have thought you would not, maybe because you've overused your preferred ink colors? Yeah, I'm not really a fan of pink ink. I'm just not. And this is not a thing of, it's not masculine. I just don't like pink ink very much. It just doesn't work for me. However, Edelstein, Pelikan Edelstein, they used to have an ink called Star Ruby Red, which I'm saddened is discontinued. It was an ink of the year. That, I think, is a lovely shade. And although that's not at all an ink I would typically go for, would seek out or purchase, we got them as a gift for Pelican Hub. So I think I had 2, maybe even 3 bottles, that somehow I got an extra bottle, and I've used them up. I'm almost done my 3rd bottle, and that's it. I have no more left, which is sad, but I'm sure there's something else like that out there. I love that color. So yes, there actually are colors like that. There are certain ink colors I don't use very much. For example, I hardly ever use gray. I do actually have, it's another Edelstein, and it's not trying to be Edelstein commercial, but I do think their inks are very nice. They're expensive, but they are nice inks. And I forget what it's called, Moonstone or something, probably would be something gem related with Edelstein. That gray I do like. I hardly ever use it, but it works nicely in chrome pens. I find it's a good match. I like that. I like that specific shade of gray, even though, again, I don't use gray a lot. I did used to have the Mont Blanc Oyster Gray, ended up not using it a lot. Gray ink, some people really like it because it's almost like graphite, like you're writing with a pencil. I don't like it that much, but that ink I kind of like. So so gray is an ink that doesn't really work well for me. I hardly ever use black, except when I use my Cross Darth Vader, because it's an all black pen and it just looks awesome. The combination is great. So, but in other pens I wouldn't use a black ink. So I know this wasn't really the question, but so yes, there are colors that I thought I wouldn't like and I end up liking. But then there also are colors that I don't really like. And of course everyone has their preferences. But so that would be my my answer. I hope that makes sense. Final question. Basically, what kept you going doing reviews before you had a large viewership? That is a question that I think requires a somewhat complicated answer. When I started out doing YouTube pen related product reviews, I never thought the channel would be successful. And this is not false modesty, this is just honesty. I never thought that channel would be successful. I never thought I would be in a situation where, I think as I'm recording this, I have over 60,000 subscribers. That's insane to me. Picture like a sports stadium and you put 60,000 people. There's a lot of people who chose to subscribe to your work. I certainly never thought that I could be anywhere in the world and be recognized in public places, which has happened to me a couple of times. Not hundreds of times, but it's happened a number of times. That's a very strange experience. But having said that, whereas initially there was a lot of excitement over the channel growing, having more and more subscribers, that excitement subsides. Not the gratitude. I'm still very grateful that so many people apparently like my videos enough to subscribe to them. But what subsides is the excitement over subscribers, just their numbers. What I mean by that is, think about it this way. I'm sorry, but I bring this back to a concept that I find interesting and illustrative in this purpose. One of the courses I teach is called Sensation and Perception. It's about the cognitive neuroscience of the senses. And one thing we talk about there is Weber, German scientist, who came up with the idea of just noticeable difference. And it turns out that all your sensory modalities have something like that. And here's how it works, very practically. For every type of sensation, there is a minimum amount that needs to change for you to be able to notice that change. And for weight, it's about 1/40th. 1/40th. Okay, so how does that work? Well, imagine that you give someone something in hand, a weight, right? That is, let's say, 100 grams. You give someone in their hand 100 grams, And then you say, okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of weight. Close your eyes. A little bit of weight added on top of that weight. Tell me if you notice a difference. Right? So it turns out that for weight, the just noticeable difference is 1/40th. So you need to add whatever weight you have, you need to add 1/40th of that weight on top of it for someone to notice the difference. If it's less than that, say 1/20th, people say, no, it's no different. You didn't add anything. Even though you did. They just don't notice it. Why am I telling you this? Good question. I'm telling you this because to me, this is how subscribers work as well. There is a just noticeable difference. When you get 100,000 subscribers, which I'm far removed from, I mean, think of how long it took me to get 60,000 people, right? You get a YouTube plaque. Well, I'm sure that would be nice. It's a nice commemoration of what you have achieved. But, although I'm now at 60,000, I don't think I would experience particular excitement if I moved to 70,000, which I'm guessing I will. It will take a while. But initially, when I went from 0 subscribers to 10, to 100, to 1,000, was a massive difference. When I got my first 10,000 subscribers, that moment stood out to me. Whereas now, to add 10,000 on top of 60,000, it won't give me any more excitement. Well, that is something that has changed. And I say again, that's not because I'm not grateful for people subscribing to me. What has changed is that it's not a big change. It's no longer a noticeable difference. It's not more exciting. 70,000 is not much more exciting than 60,000. It's still a lot of people. If I were to go overnight from 60,000 to 1 million, for whatever incomprehensible reason, which will never happen in the pen world, right? That's a big noticeable difference. Maybe this was really boring. I don't know if this is really boring, but that's something I've noticed that has changed in me. Now, having said that, I know that wasn't really the question. The real question was, what kept you going before you had a large viewership? Well, the excitement of, oh, people seem to be picking this up. Remember, I started when there was almost no one doing pen videos on YouTube. And as a result, my channel grew probably faster, probably way faster, almost certainly way faster than it would if I would have started today. Because now YouTube is saturated with all kinds of people doing reviews of fountain pens. So initially there was that excitement. And that excitement, it's certainly still there, but it's different. It's changed. I enjoy looking at different pens now, but I have seen hundreds of pens. So that changes as well. Your viewpoint changes. The reason you do it may change. Everything's just different. It's a different way of doing it now. Different things give you excitement. And that's just the way it is. And before, it was the excitement of the channel growing. I think it took me like half an hour to make this point. I'm sorry. That's what I was trying to say. Initially, the growth is very exciting. But at some point, it's just a thing that goes along naturally with your channel. And I'm still grateful for it. I want to make sure people understand that. It's not that I'm not grateful. I am grateful. But the excitement is less pronounced. Just noticeable difference. That's it. It was a good question. Thanks, Melinda. Okay, now, I hope this was useful. If you have any other questions, please leave them below. I'll get to them as soon as I can. And I'd gladly see you later. Bye.